As leaders, most days give us the opportunity to practice stepping up to difficult conversations. Does it get easier? I think it does, but I don't think it ever gets easy. The very nature of a difficult conversation means that there's things that needs to sit in the middle between us that we're not going to enjoy looking at or that we're not going to enjoy unpicking. It doesn't mean that it doesn't need to happen. As we continue through this particular year, some of us have been putting off difficult conversations that really do need to happen. But because we can't do them in real life, because we can't do them in person in the ways that has always felt safest to do, because we can't pick up so much of the nuance of people's experiences through this format, we're putting them off. The reality is that the longer this goes on, the more we know that that's not possible. So what are some of the small things that you can do to make it okay to step into difficult conversations in this context? I think more than ever, it's important that we plan well. The advantage of this context is that we can plan and we can put ourselves a little cue card up on the screen or in front of us that our person on the other side never needs to be able to see. So we can kind of practice using note-taking for ourselves a little bit more effectively. I want us to also think about difficult conversations in this context being iterative rather than singular. I think in our heads, because normally we would sit down and we would take it very seriously, we would have a difficult conversation with someone, it's become a thing. Whereas I think what this context requires of us is a series of iterative conversations that we might have smaller bit by bit conversations, or we might be more careful about explicitly letting someone know, here's what we need to think about. Have you got any questions about that? Okay, where do we start with that thing we need to talk about? Let's do a little bit and let's do a little bit more. This isn't possible for every context, but in lots of ways, stretching ourselves to think about the ongoing challenging conversations rather than the singular difficult conversation can be helpful. I want us to think about making sure that it's a dialogue rather than a monologue. The longer you go on as a leader speaking without getting someone else speaking, the more one way that conversation is going to be. So making sure that as early as possible in the conversation, you make sure it starts being a dialogue. I want you to think about gorgeous piece from Brené Brown's Dare to Lead, wonderful book, she does a beautiful description of being clear to be kind. Lots of us dance around the edges of what actually needs to be said, and in doing that, we actually add to the stress of the other person. What I want to encourage you to practice doing is being more direct and more clear, because that is actually kinder to others, especially when we can't see them, we don't know what's going on. We don't want to leave them with lots of unknown unsaids. And of course, we've got to listen. It feels harder to do because we can't pick up all the nuance of, head down from people. But there is so much that is still being given to us. Even if we can only get voice and people don't want to put their camera on, there are so many layers in people's voices. We need to practice doing that listening so it does become more possible for us. And it's hard, and it's okay that it's hard, but it's not okay that we keep putting it off. If you would love to get braver at your communication and more effective in the way you use communication to have a greater impact as a leader, please do join us for my next online program, Effective Communication, starting in October. It's designed specifically as a really practical reflection and action-focused experience for those of us who are working in the mid-levels of messy organisations. I love to play with the messiness, so we'll go there. Please do get in touch. I look forward to working with you. Thanks.